really know what's going on over there other than everybody's dumb.
The instant you step out of line, you say something that they don't like and they don't like you personally, they're going to use all those pre-existing laws and they're going to use it on you.
Woman exposed her male genitalia to women and underage girls. That's what happened.
It's pure propaganda and it's super cringe, by the way. It's super cringe.
Bryson Gray is in the news. We're gonna have we'll have a new intro by next week. Still have Bryson Gray, I think, in there. It just didn't. I tried to put it up here, but it was just processing. The process of it all. Eric Butler, how are you?
Oh, not too bad. Shout out Bryson. You know what I'm saying?
I do know what you're saying. I think.
Yeah, I was trying to talk to some people in Glendale, Arizona yesterday.
How did that go? What about?
Well, I was honestly just trying to get a feel for if anybody was paying attention to anything at all and just like tailoring the questions to different people.
Mm-hmm.
And look, obviously this is anecdotal evidence, but nobody knows anything. Like nobody's paying attention. The 24-hour news cycle is eluding most people in my experience. Do you remember a couple months ago I went to the University of Arizona and talked to college kids?
I do.
And I kind of felt bad because maybe I was a little bit too rough on those kids, but I take that back and I should have been harder on them because people are leaving these schools, leaving these colleges, and they're not. I get it. Everybody needs to get, worry about number one, but yikes, bro. I mean, nothing. Like, okay, I shouldn't say nothing, but very little, bro. People do not care about anything, which I guess is good. Maybe.
Well, I have good news for you. Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney's soccer team will advance to the English League 2 soccer league, which is a torn. I used to like them a lot, and then politics ruins everything. The title track
Did they get
today,
political? I thought I didn't.
Well, Ryan Reynolds is very political. He we're 8 minutes in here. We'll leave it a few more minutes before I talk about injections, but he promoted those with some lies, some very specific lies. That I believe the quote was, "Young people are dying in incredible numbers." Or
I'm picking up what you're putting down.
There's very specific claims that he did for a PSA, and they were lies. And since then, probably makes a lot of money though. He owns a soccer team and whiskey. But let's get into,
and a mobile.
Whiskey.
Doesn't he do mobile, like a cell phone company or something?
I don't know. John Cena does. I saw that commercial of him singing today.
Mint Mobile. Cut the check, Ryan.
Lizzo, who is, I was going to say enormous, but I guess I might as well say it now. Lizzo's enormous, and you'll see. So her fame is enormous. We'll see how enormous her fame is on stage. Now, I believe Tennessee law now states that you cannot have drag performances in public without probably getting some sort of permit and or prior approval to do so. What Lizzo appears to have done is bring drag queens on stage with her, and we'll talk about this in a moment. Let's watch it. Let's make sure we get it in between us nicely here, and thank me later, I guess. Crowd's going wild, berserk even. Support your drag entertainers now, Eric. I like how this has been, to use a term that's overused, red flag. There are certain, support X things that have become, a red flag for identity politics, which I think, nobody should be proud of. One is when you say support all women. That's the least harmful one because women are just women. But when you say, support women creators or support women in business, that's literally saying support a person based on their gender, no matter what they do or what they stand for. Then the next thing is support race X. You saw it on Amazon. You saw it on video games, which was support black creators, black artists. You saw it on Spotify, Amazon, maybe your Uber Eats or DoorDash, which I have, buy from black owned businesses. Give these people money based on the color of their skin. This isn't racist because we say it's not. And now you have support your local drag performer, as if that's not weird. So you have to support these people that somebody else has deemed to be, undermined by society, which is exactly not the case. Every single mainstream thing supports drag queens, from NHL hockey teams to platinum selling artists to, talk show hosts. Everything supports it. So to act like they're under attack is obviously not something that people who are living in reality would say. Now, the closest you might get is this law in Tennessee where you're preventing it from being, a public thing. But I want to ask you, Eric, does this law go too far? Tennessee is very right wing in terms of the laws they pass. Daily Wire is very influential there. We've seen Matt Walsh get stuff done in terms of child gender affirming care. Do you think this law goes too far? And while you're talking about that, I'll look up the exact specifics of it.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I don't know all the specifics of it, obviously, but I will say it is a little bit silly that you need to get government approval and permits and all this red tape to do a drag thing or whatever it is, when all you should really, I mean, maybe you'll figure out the details, but all you should really have to do is show your ID. If you're 21, you go in, just like with a regular bar, a regular strip club, regular nightclub, whatever. If you're 21, you can get in. If not, then you you gotta wait, right? So that is a little bit strange, but those performers on stage with Lizzo, look, I didn't see the whole performance, but they look like her. They're all completely disgusting. So if you get rid of them, you kind of got to get rid of her as well. It's all just completely despicable, and it's not even
Okay, let me interject here. I'm sorry to interrupt, but again, it's we've been lied to very easily. Again, this is basically the same law, and I'm looking from NBC, who's obviously in favor of this sort of stuff. But it's ban adult cabaret entertainment on public property in locations where it can be viewed by minors, such as topless dancers, go-go dancers, exotic dancers, male strippers. So basically, on public property. And they have this in Utah, where they had a documentary that surfaced about this. So you can't do it, at a public park, in a public fair or something. Anything that's paid for by tax dollars, they have categorized this now as, being on the same level as go-go dancers and strippers, which they often are similar to, because it could be seen by children passing by. And if one of these arenas is publicly owned, then you can't have it there, which came up in Utah. So I just wanted to interject with the truth there, Eric. You may continue.
But is it even, I mean, these people aren't even pretending at this point. They're not even, there's no more facade of that this is maybe, that she actually likes this. I mean, Lizzo is clearly a figurehead for this establishment regime. So they're not even
She's
pretending
a figure, all right.
that she just likes this on her own and is promoting it on her own. She's clear, like from her playing the weird flute thing that happened a little while ago, maybe 6 or 8 months ago, and then her, claiming that she was the beauty standard and getting into a little back and forth for like the 50th time with Candace Owens. She is one of their foot soldiers. So I guess this is good. I mean, are there people that still pretend that this is just, oh, it's just the art and Lizzo likes this stuff? Like, she's clearly a political foot soldier, and it's just despicable how they can't go even one day without pushing this onto us. And you know what this kind of reminds me of? Maybe it's a little, apples to oranges, but when we hear this guy, you should check it out on my channel, but this Bay Area reporter who's going to bat for this weirdo extreme gender ideology, right? And they're mad because there's laws coming on the books that will force teachers to tell parents about their children's gender ideology, but they shouldn't have a problem with that, right? Because we're constantly told that you should be proud. Lizzo is the beauty standard. So it's like they're constantly telling you that these things are so great, and then when it comes down to like actually talking about it, then they feel like they're being attacked. Am I maybe that's not really making sense, but my point is, I guess underneath all of this, no matter what happens, without fail, their agendas will conflict with another one of their talking points when you follow it to their logical conclusion. So Lizzo is the beauty standard, right? And she's the epitome of a woman. Meanwhile, she's bringing men on stage and telling you that you should celebrate them. I mean, none of it makes any sense. And I feel like we're constantly talking about this, but I guess we have no choice, because as long as they're going to continue to do it, we have to continue to do it, because and I learned the hard way yesterday that most people just do not care. But it's too late for me. I can't put the toothpaste back in the bottle, in the tube, I should say. So we can't. There's no way to ignore it at this particular point. And they keep shoving it down your throat. No pun intended. And then they ask you stupid questions like, why do you even care? Well, it's because you have 3 parades every quarter, right? You guys have a parade every month. You have a day every single month. And then when somebody objects to it, you say, well, why do you even care? It's because you've been trying to sell it to everybody as hard as you possibly can when we don't want it. And when somebody has one critical statement to make about your movement, you're like, you feel attacked, and why are you so obsessed with me, bro? It's because you guys won't shut up about it. That's why.
Well, it's a very weird point in time we are here in this supposed culture war where it's very divided, and perhaps it was going to come to a head anyway. In other people's viewpoints across the world, they might say like these are so slight, but maybe we finally understand like the difference between Iran and Iraq once went to war, and then the Baltic states, like Yugoslavia and places like that, and the Soviet Union, where all these places, you from the outside looking in, you probably think they're pretty similar, but these slight differences, and you might not think they're slight, but from the outside looking in, they might look slight about drag queens or about abortion and stuff like that. And I think it's going to end up being a place where one side is either going to have to win somehow or some way, or there's going to have to be some sort of separation of states in, maybe there's a Southwest Union of states or something like that. You know what I mean? With there still being a federal government, because you need that for national defense, I think. So what we've got here is we've got, people who are very left wing, who are more inclined with, like we've mentioned, Australia and England, and probably places like Spain and Portugal and France and the Netherlands. Maybe they're all very intertwined with their beliefs. And then you've got a bunch of other people who are almost there, and maybe their beliefs were represented in the government in a sense all the way up to maybe Barack Obama, maybe up to George Bush before the endless war started, maybe. What?
Well, this it's gotten so outlandish that it's not even about like left-wing policy anymore, like, oh, social safety net, and helping the homeless, or like food stamps or whatever, like was traditionally left-wing affirmative action. Now we're talking about pure delusion. It has nothing to do with any policy that anybody can wrap their head around. It's literally just pure delusion and forcing people to capitulate to a completely insane ideology that cannot make sense, right? I mean, and that's why they will never explain it, right? That's why how many times every week I have to go back to the pig video, because that one really stuck with me, right? That one gives me like mild PTSD. But that's what it is. They Katie Hobbs is a perfect example. I'm not going to tell the people of the state I quote unquote serve what I'm about, because they're going to have to just deal with whatever it is I bring to the table. I know the machine's going to work for me. Nobody's going to explain it, because it crumbles at the first. It crumbles at the. I mean, we're talking like, you don't have to go in Matt Walsh with a sledgehammer and break down all these people. You can ask one simple question that a child that they love so much would be able to ask, and it would all come. Their house of cards would come tumbling down. So it's not even. I wish it were about like some left wing policy, high taxes versus low taxes or something like that. But this is in complete delusion because it's the best way to fully control people. Like if celebrate the man in a dress, and you can be on our team. It doesn't make any sense. And another state the obvious thing here, right? If a chubby old fat man showed up on stage with Lizzo, that would be weird. If a hot looking 25-year-old stripper showed up on stage with Lizzo, that would be weird. But for whatever reason, when it's a guy in a dress, it's completely acceptable and you have to celebrate it. It doesn't make any sense.
Support your local adult dancer or whatever they would say. My point was getting to that there's some sort of divide, and I don't know if there's going to be able to be a reconciliation on some of these views. So it's going to be people who are stuck somewhere in between, libertarianism, conservatism, and possibly what they call classic liberalism. However, to your point of there used to be these different issues that people would argue over, I think every time I look back and I see some sort of political struggle or political conversation happening in the past, I think about, was this all like, knowing how corrupt it is now in the last 10 years, it was probably much worse before we had the internet and much worse before there were email leaks and everything. So I can't sit here and say, well, back then it was just, affirmative action and food stamps was the argument. I think the powers that be, there was always this inevitable push towards what society seems to always push towards in failed states. And you look at communist countries across the world and they all follow the same pattern, mobilize these children against these adults, get it in the schools, get indoctrination into these schools, have these weird stances for the economy. Venezuela, thinking of one, or China, of course, thinking of another, and then try to dominate that way. And if it fails, then, let's get away scot-free. And it all comes with silencing freedom of speech, and it comes with taking away people's guns. And I'm not convinced that this wasn't always the pathway it was going to fall down, even if the politicians who were the useful idiots were unaware of it, and they were like, I'm standing up for what I believe in. It's 1997 and we've just finished the second Gulf War and we need to do this and that. And they sound like prospectors from the 1300s or whatever.
I mean, I get what you're saying 100%, but no matter how you slice it, there wasn't people just demanding that you pretend a grown man is a woman. So I see how it kind of got to that. Like there's always been some play to divide people, some wedge issue, but it just, I mean, we jumped the shark. It's become too much, right? So yeah, it was all, they were going to figure it out somehow, but this route that we've taken is just beyond parody, right? These are things, and not even just with the Transformers, but like even calling Nikki Haley a she's laundering white supremacy through her brown skin, which her skin isn't even really that brown, or Larry Elder, who of course is the blackface of white supremacy. Those were Dave Chappelle sketches in 2005. That's comedy, right? A man dressed up in a bikini was in Living Color was Jim Carrey, right? Joanna Man. Those were comedies. Those were comedies not that long ago. And now they want you to believe this is absolutely real. So somebody, I think this is, maybe we'll save this for a different discussion, but I don't know who it is. If, the man behind the curtain, the shadow, the puppet master, the council on foreign affairs. I don't know who's actually doing it, but I guess to your point, yes, I see that there was always going to be something that they were going to try to drive a wedge between people, but it just wasn't quite this extreme. And I could be wrong, but they just made this stuff up, right? Like we saw with Eric Adams. Oh, emissions crises. He just says things, and you have to believe it simply because it came out of his mouth, right? So the list goes on and on about the things that they're. We've said it before. We touched on it. Obviously, everything is life and death, right? Drive a truck, life and death. Don't get the shot, life and death. Don't let your kid cut their junk off, life and death. It's always life and death. So they've completely jumped the shark. And yeah, we're just we're circling the drain right now, bro. So I guess we better have fun while it lasts.
Well, I think they saw what happened with Trump and they said we have to pour gasoline on the fire. And like anything, I watch a lot of Shark Tank. You throw $1 million on something and it's going to accelerate the business's growth, and then it might stagnate. So the acceleration of the culture war right now as we see it. It was bound to happen. They're tanking the economy. They're doing all these sorts of things, and it was bound to happen. Maybe they just had to dial up the communism dial to 11 at the time. Let's move on to this Vice documentary on MAGA rap. I skimmed through it earlier, grabbed a clip of Bryson talking. Shout out Patriot Day. Patriot Day. Patriot Day is a movie with Mark Wahlberg. Patriot J on Twitter posted it. The man, the rapper, the writer, the lawyer. And Forgiato Blow has a big part in it. And, I guess I'll mention it after, but they do explain how he got rich. And this is something I had pontificated on before, or that he had a rich upbringing. And it's very interesting that he was actually the son, or is the son, of the guy who invented Auto Trader. So I thought it was very odd that he had
Bryson?
No, Forgiato.
Oh,
so because I thought it was very odd that he had access to all these riches very early in his rap career, and I was like, and he mentioned in his songs that he was the black sheep in his family, so I sort of just made an educated guess. And then he's got Bryson Gray in there, and they've got this very weirdo Vice reporter, as they always do. Do you remember the girl they sent to Martin Shkreli's house? Do you remember that girl? Vice always has the weirdest interviewers. So this interviewer, I think in the clip, I feel like a talk show here. Tell us about the clip. Well, there is some sort of transvestite or transsexual showing up to a Forgiato Blow video shoot, and Bryson seems very skeptical about it. He says he thinks it's a plant, and he's talking with the interviewer how he doesn't agree with any of the stuff that's happening at the moment.
Beliefs.
SoundCloud.
Let's just make it larger for everybody. I think this is about a minute and a half.
On Spotify literally banned me due to hate speech. These are songs called Pride Month and a song called Safe Space. They banned me because of my biblical views on LGBTQ+.
Oh, because of hate speech towards LGBTQ
hate speech, right?
People.
But then again, if a gay person say God was transgender, they can say that freely, no ban, no nothing. I'm not tolerant of LGBT stuff. The LGBT person is definitely not tolerant of a Nazi. If somebody's a Nazi, you wouldn't be so tolerant. It's impossible for tolerance to be global. It just can't happen.
Are you tolerant of Nazis?
I think Nazis be able to speak if they want to speak.
What if they see you trans people?
They do.
And that's okay?
Yeah, that's their view.
Yeah, but you right now with Terry believe that your truths or whatever about how you see Terry, it's correct. Well, so then that's also acknowledging that if a Nazi sees you as subhuman, if that's what they believe, then they're correct?
In their mind. But it's a different.
So then you're just correct in your mind.
No, that's not true. 80% of what I said is objectively true.
Show 2024, man.
Now, don't get me wrong, though. That person would never be allowed in my house to eat or drink, though.
You wouldn't let them in your house?
No, ma'am.
What are you scared of?
I'm transphobic, so I am kind of scared of them.
Terry likes the music. That's a trans person who likes your music.
Yeah, I think that person likes Forgiato Blow's music. And if it does like my music, I don't think if that person heard Safe Space or Pride Month, they would, have that same view. And they possibly could. If they could, it's still respect there. But that doesn't change how I view that person at all.
Well, Eric Butler, I want to touch on this girl's comments there on how she says, well, if a Nazi believes they're right, then aren't you saying they're right if you think that what you're saying is you're right? And this, I think, reveals her, complete liberal mindset in here. And I don't say that as an insult. I say it to just say that she's wrong. She doesn't appear to live in a world of objective truth. So she thinks that if you're being tolerant, and at the same time, she does, is the funny thing, and I'll explain. On one hand, she thinks that if Bryson agrees that the Nazis should be able to speak their mind and have a First Amendment right to free speech, then therefore he must be thinking that the Nazi is correct because that's the only way that they should be able to be allowed to speak, as if they're correct. So on one hand, she doesn't believe in that weird sense of, objective truth. But the other part of that argument would be only people who are correct get to speak. So she is both saying that Bryson is wrong for thinking that he's correct and somebody else isn't. But in her viewpoint, I would assume that the reason why the Nazis aren't allowed to speak is because they're objectively wrong and she's objectively correct. So she gets to choose who is correct, and therefore they are the ones who get to speak. But Bryson doesn't get to choose who's correct. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, these people, look, Yeah, she thinks like, well, if you allow them to speak, it doesn't make any sense. But she's coming from this angle, like at least from where I'm sitting. Okay, yeah, there's bad people everywhere, right? There's bad white people and there's bad black people and bad gays and bad, but why do you let that? Why are you so scared of some like? You can let bad people have their opinion, and these people they get trapped up in this little bubble, this little invisible cage. They're on the invisible leash where somebody else's thoughts really matters to you. Like, why does it even matter to you, lady? And now I sound like them because when they're constantly pushing the agenda on us, and then somebody gets mad and they say, "Why do you even care?" But it's like, why? Why is somebody else's point of view so detrimental to you? You can say, "Oh, well, I disagree," and move on. Like that's like Tyler, like the great Tyler the Creator once said, "There's no such thing as cyberbullying. Just turn off the screen." Right? You have plenty of other things, thousands, millions of other things you could look at, but you're so fixated on making sure that one person likes you or one person has this certain view of you when really it doesn't matter. But it's all about control because they could not care any less about what you do, right? We see that they can tear down statues, they can, vandalize entire city blocks, they can burn stuff down. They don't really care. But as soon as you have a wrong think, then it stops. And I experienced this myself, right? I mean, how many times do I have to tell the story of being arrested in Lower Manhattan for protesting the lockdown when the George Floyd protesters camped out in that very same park for 3 weeks? Because it's not about your actions, it's about making sure that they control your thoughts, which, to bring it full circle, is why they are constantly pushing the Transformer stuff on you. Because once you get that one, everything else is easy, bro. That you could sell them anything, as we know, right? So yes, you can't, after you get somebody to submit, even if they don't believe it, right? We see this time and time again that people will admit they don't believe it, but they know that there's consequences if they voice their non-belief, if they voice any bit of dissent. So you can have that woman on the whatever podcast with giant D cup, tits sitting on the table pretending that she doesn't know what a woman is. You know what I'm saying? So they just want complete control, and every single thing they do is just a different avenue. There's a million ways to skin a cat. I think you can't even say that now because of PETA, but there's all these different ways to get to the same goal of complete control. And right now, we are smack dab in the middle. Maybe we're closer to the end. I don't know. But you can call it the culture war if you want. That's, I guess, what most people call it. But this is, I mean, it's not, there's not gonna be any hot kinetic war unless Gavin Newsom becomes president. Then I vote for that. But this is it. This is what when in 10, 15, 20 years, we're gonna look back at this and realize this was CW2. So you can call it the culture war, but this is what it's gonna be. It's as one, fairly famous commentator once said, it's an informational war. So we are living in it. We are in it right now. And I don't know how it ends, obviously, but I will say, glass half full, you will not be able to outrun the truth, right? Like you can make scientific advancements, AI, all this stuff is not going to change, bro. Like I just don't see it. Like they want to do what, uterine transplant so a man can actually give birth and all this stuff. They want to play God. They want to get rid of. Look, I'm not a religious guy, but it's pretty obvious to me at this particular point in time that their goal is to eliminate your belief in anything else and make sure that the political establishment is your god. And it comes in many different forms, whether it's, these corrupt hack media outlets, RIP BuzzFeed News. But this is what they're doing, and they hate to see a guy like Bryson, right? Because 4 or 5 years ago, I mean, Bryson wasn't even supposed to exist, right? There wasn't even supposed there was a point in time where they told us that a black Trump supporter wasn't even possible. Now we can debate on whether Bryson is still a Trump supporter and talk about pharmaceuticals and all sort of the missteps that Donald Trump has taken. Completely different story. But they hate to see this little glitch in the matrix. And I will say, shameless promotion here, I do have some more clips from yesterday that I think, I mean, when you break apart these big groups of people and these Twitter mobs and these outrage mobs, when you break them apart and you get people, even Michael Knowles, right? When he talks to protesters one-on-one, you can see the crack in the door. You can see the crack in the facade. So I think it's tough, even with Bud Light and stuff. It's very tough. It feels like an uphill battle, but unmistakably, common sense is still the majority, as much as the media tries to make it seem like we are out on the fringes of bigotry and hate. It's just not the case. So I don't know. I don't even remember what your question is, but that's my take on that weird little. And Vice, last thing, promise. Vice is among the worst. Like if you look at their Instagram, Vice and Vice News, they're not holding back at all. It's like they do the craziest headlines, like white police officer shoots black teen walking in grocery aisle. It's just crazy. Like obviously I made that one up. Like it's a little hyperbolic, but they're not even trying, like how the establishment is not even trying to pretend that Lizzo is her own woman and actually believes these things. It's very clear that she's getting her talking points from up on high. Vice is doing the exact same thing. And this is because I think they are in the throes of the end. And that's why BuzzFeed News has gone down. That's why Bud Light is sort of panicking right now, is because they are in their death throes. They are in the last little bit of this power struggle, and it will. Okay, I said last thing, but this is really the last thing. That's why they want to get. That's why they're indicting Donald Trump, is because somebody in that establishment, somebody behind the curtain, realizes that maybe their little, blanket the whole country with mail-in ballots. Maybe it's not going to work. Maybe something they can see things before we can see them. So something might not work, and there might be a crack or something that where Donald Trump or even Ron DeSantis, who knows at this particular point, that might actually be able to win because people are so fed up. So I don't know, man. We got a complete mess on our hands, and unfortunately, right now in April 2023, it's still going to get worse before it gets any better. But I think in the long run, you can't escape the truth.
Well, we've got Bryson Gray in the house now.
Oh, word.
There he is.
What's up, y'all?
Yo,
we were just watching a clip from this Vice documentary that I discovered existed today. And the thing that I was going to say is this documentary is done from the angle that they do all these things on CNN and Vice on. And it's been like this for years, where they try to act like the documentary is like, let's try to figure this out. Let's try to figure out why these people think this way. And they're coming from a point of view where it's like, it's so strange that this even exists that they have to act like it's so strange. And the only reason why they're questioning people about it is to try to figure out this anomaly, this, like you said, Eric, this glitch of the matrix. Why do Forgiato Blow and Bryson Gray even exist? Let's try to understand it. Let's try to go from this angle where, we're treating them like some sort of parasite or amoeba that we're trying to figure it out. How long did this woman talk to you, and what kind of vibe did you get from it, Bryson?
Well, we talked for a good while. So obviously, how documentaries work. A lot of things get cut out. But we talked to her for a long time. I knew she was liberal off the rip. She left out a lot of things that I said to her, because sometimes I trigger her a few times because knowing what type of person she was. But she actually was cool. I feel like for the most part, the documentary was like fair. It was actually them just trying to figure it out. She sort of left out the part about how shocked she was by how packed it was at our concert, because she said, wow, I didn't think this was going to be like this packed. She said that on camera, but that part wasn't in there. Also, when the transgender person came, she left because she put the part in where I said 80% of what I said is objectively true, but she didn't put in the conversation that made me say that. We had a debate about gender and what gender was and why gender cannot change. And she left all that part out, but she still put the 80% of what I said is objectively true in there, which is weird because who even knows what I was responding to at that point? But
yeah, it was. Yeah. So you had said in that part that this transgender guy who showed up might have been set up. Who are you referring to? Might have been setting that up, Vice, or just the people running the video shoot, or what? And was it? Did you find out?
No, I never found out. They said it wasn't set up, but let me tell you what happened. We picked a random place to shoot a music video. Forgiato said we can go to the basketball court to give it a different look, and he says in a rich neighborhood. And then Vice said, let's do it. He showed me pictures. We had like 3 spots in mind. So we go there to shoot a video on the spot for Vice. Impossible. You know what I'm saying? Unless people had plans behind the scenes. We went, and there just so happened to be a transgender. Not only was there some 6'3" transgender, it was a 6'3" transgender Trump supporter. Oh, so random. This makes so much actual sense. And I told them that whole day, I said, this was set up, bro. Like, y'all can tell me what y'all want to tell me, but the chances of this happening is like 1 in a million. And the fact that it did happen, let me know it was set up. And then, like, they tried to get that person to come talk to me before Jono was like, do not let him go talk to Bryson, because Bryson, he is not going to like it. Bryson going to send him home crying.
Another thing I want to ask you about Bryson, and then Eric will have something, and then if you can stick around, great. If you can, that's fine. A lot of the stuff I've seen on your Twitter, of course, top 5 most entertaining Twitters there are for me. A lot of this stuff you've been battling, well, I wouldn't say battling, just discussing with people, is, online clips of black people fighting in restaurants and stuff. And this has been something that I've noticed you commenting on a lot, where people are saying that this is a black people problem, and you say it's an everybody problem. And I just want to say, have you heard, what type of arguments have you heard around that? What arguments are you giving back to people? Because I feel like, on the, let's call it the fringes of the conservative things, this is something that people still believe is a thing, that there's a huge crime problem. And you see the online videos, of people fighting in Walmart or in Taco Bell, and I love Taco Bell, so that hurts me. What type of arguments are you getting from this for people who haven't been reading your stuff on that?
Well, the stuff I comment on mainly is the race baiting stuff, and I'm all about, like, because there is a crime problem in the black community. That is just a simple, statistical fact. There's nothing to argue about. I'm not arguing about that. I'm arguing about the false narrative around it, because conservatives are now being just as disingenuous, if not more disingenuous, than liberals are. What do I mean by that? Anybody that has been in this movement or in the realm of politics for the last 3 years, every time a black person gets shot by the police, the video comes out, everybody calls it racist. And what do conservatives typically say? Wait for the context. That's what we say, even with the George Floyd situation, right? Wait for the context. I thought that was a common sense thing to do. And then every time a black person tried to make it racial, people would ask, how do you know it was racial? Just because it's a white person and a black person in the scenario doesn't mean it's racial. So I thought this was a normal thing to say until these videos started becoming mainstream on the right, of black people attacking white people. And a lot of these videos range from like 10 years ago to now. You know how confirmation bias works. Even if 100 of them is old, if one of them is from yesterday, that's all you need to confirm. So the issue is they paint these videos as if black people are genociding white people. And there's no statistics to back it up. The best argument and the best statistics they have is self-reported data, which is the victimization survey. And people are talking about this victimization survey as if it is fact. But this also seems so liberal, because the survey is a self-reported survey. So they literally ask people questions. The incidents don't even have to be reported to police or anything. So you have no evidence of these things happening. Like, literally, if a black liberal used hate crime statistics to say white people are racist, that will literally have more validity than the victimization survey on solely because the hate crime statistics, for it to be reported to the FBI, has to go through an investigation. The victimization survey doesn't. And both statistics are dumb. Hate crime statistics are dumb, and this survey is also dumb. And that seems to be their best argument, but it's a non-argument. But once again, it's like the right is turning to the left. It's weird.
The right is kind of turning into the left a little bit. But I wanted to ask you, because I struggle with this like every day, bro. Look, if you have contact with these quote unquote journalists, you know what I'm saying? Do you believe, do you think, these are adults, bro. Like, we've all made it to a certain point in life, right? Like, do you really believe that these people actually believe this stuff, or are they just being fed? Like, do they go home at night and think like a man can actually turn into a woman? Like, do people genuinely believe that, or are they just getting their talking points and they know that they have to push the narrative, and they go home and they realize that it's all completely fake and it's all completely manipulative? Or do they genuinely believe this stuff, in your opinion, obviously?
I think they genuinely believe it, which is the scariest thing about it. Like, even in the Vice News documentary, I didn't post this in the clip on Twitter because I personally don't. I told you it disgusts me to see certain types of people. But the person is in a documentary, and I kid you not, this 6'3" man said, I'm a big girl, I can handle it. That's literally what he said. He wasn't joking. It's not a joke. He's not laughing. He said, I'm a big girl and I can handle it. People genuinely think you can switch your gender. And here go my thing, right? Say what you want to say, as long as you acknowledge that you're incorrectly using the English language. The word gender has the same root word as Genesis, like the book of Genesis, because Genesis, and everybody knows what Genesis means, definition. It means the beginning, the roots. The word gender, both words in Genesis come from the Latin word genus, which literally means birth. So you can use whatever language you want, jack up the English language, but you have to acknowledge that you're incorrectly using the language. But these people are very serious. I've been in real life debates about these topics that I thought were like jokes, and they were dead serious. So this is not a game.
Okay. Well, I guess in some way that's a little bit better than people just being completely evil and manipulative. Like, I mean, if I want to try to take the glass half full approach, like at least they believe what they're selling. Like the great George Costanza once said, it's not a lie if you believe it. So I guess that's that's better than just being completely evil. But I mean, either way.
Well, I think a lot of the reporters are being evil though. Like a lot of the reporters that's like my age and older, I'm 31. If you my age and older, you know good and well, nobody ever said no crap like this. You know this is a lie. You know, man, you would have got laughed at. Ugh! I'm sorry.
Oh my word.
Yeah, this is where the clip cut off at first, basically. This was just before the clip that we showed Bryson. And yeah, I thought that I just thought that this was part of the documentary where they found somebody and they're talking to him, but this is a guy who obviously believes that his woman checking out for Giotto, I'd like to point out. Really,
and how long ago was this? How long ago was this filmed? Is this an older thing or
this was right when the Kyrie Irving thing started, and it was right before the Balenciaga stuff. Because if you see in the documentary, I'm wearing Balenciaga, and the shoes I'm wearing, I burned them. So this was right before the Balenciaga stuff, but right after the Kyrie Irving stuff.
Copy.
Let's see if we can hear it.
MAGA or Trump that you like more than what I guess the
Sound
liberals
working?
were offering.
Yeah, I can hear it.
And it's lost through totalitarian government.
So some MAGA rap stuff is just like talking about Trump and MAGA, and there's other songs that are anti-LGBTQ, that are anti-trans.
And
does that bother you?
You know what? It doesn't bother me because there's ignorance out there. Everybody's entitled to their own worldview. We're all a product of our culture, our upbringing.
I'm not sure this guy has heard Bryson's music, because if there was a song out there that was just like anti-white people, then I wouldn't just be like, well, it's just another thing that exists there. I'd probably be like, yeah, I don't agree with that, but it's interesting. But yeah, that uploaded like a couple hours ago, I guess, just this documentary. So
that's why I said in the documentary, I said that dude probably likes Forgiato Blow's music.
Yeah, that was in the clip we played.
Yeah.
And they always send, they always send the weirdest looking people in these. Vice probably just has a bunch of weird people working for them, and they're going under. They're looking for a sale. I wrote about this a couple months ago. A long way they've fallen since Gavin McInnes owned them, and they had a record label and stuff like that. So it's very interesting. We're gonna move on now. Do you got to go, Bryson, or do you want to stick around for this guy?
I was in the middle of editing the video, so
okay.
And I gotta get it out by Friday. So I'm sure y'all know how long it takes to edit videos.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome, bro.
Well, I do. Eric doesn't.
No, I can edit a reel. All right, I can edit a short.
Hey, that take like 15 minutes too sometimes. So you already know what it is.
All right, thanks a lot,
y'all.
Bryson. Bryson showing up on absolutely zero notice. Thank you, Bryson. We'll talk to you later, all right?
No problem, bro. Yes, sir.
The power of the internet, friends.
Nice.
Power of the internet.
Pleasant surprise.
UOPod.com, of course. If you want to support us on authorizedopinions.com, you're watching right now. Demonetized, of course, so please join our Patreon at patreon.com/UOPod. Bonus podcasts there every single week. Otherwise, you won't get all the segments, and you'll get them all together and in video, which you won't get anywhere else. And of course, on all these platforms, Getter, YouTube, Twitter, and what am I missing, of course?
Twitch.
I don't know. I know I'm missing it, but the words need to be fed into my brain. And if you're listening on Spotify, Apple Music, Google, iHeartRadio, and the lot, we thank you for listening. Please consider going to our Patreon as well.com. We've also got a new Instagram page that we're just going to randomly throw stuff on. Unauthorized Opinions Pod is what that is. It's not going to get too much care and control right now. We're just going to see how it works We're going to see if we can beat the algorithm. Hopefully Instagram's not watching. I've just brought up a mic to be next to my mic. What we got next here, Eric, is a guy who believes
can I
that...
just
racism is still real in Georgia.
Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, can I sort of just, I guess, bring it a little bit full circle about how they bring that person, that carbon-based life form, to prove that Bryson is kind of wrong or whatever. And it's like I said, they all, every single one of their points will conflict with each other, right? We saw the same thing with Caitlyn Jenner, right? Who they loved and awarded Woman of the Year, and then hated because they, them, she, shim, whatever, was kind of conservative. And then now Caitlyn comes out and says, oh, it's gone too far. It's like, you put this crazy train into motion. And it's just like, it's just so off the wall, bro. It's so bizarre. They think we're so stupid. So they throw a 6'4" transformer at Bryson to try to change his mind or whatever it is. But none of it, it's just all so manipulative. And it's all about just getting your thoughts, getting you to agree with their agenda and their thoughts, and changing your, not even changing your behavior, but just changing your thoughts. So I just feel like we see it every single time. That's it.
Well, like I said, it's they have to approach it from this angle of, this is so obviously wrong, and let's just try to figure out from like almost like a humanitarian sense, like, oh, we're just trying to like not even normalize, because they're not, acknowledge the existence of these people like they're lesser than us. And that's how they do it. That's how it is. That's how it works on CNN. And if you've been on the other side of the wall, let's say, and you're just like, oh, this is just the news, it's how everybody feels, Jimmy Kimmel is just talking about how everybody feels, then you get on the other side of the wall and you're just like, oh, okay, so they're just pretending like half of people don't exist, basically. That's what they do.
There's no other point of view. Last thing, I promise. But there's a story out of the Bay Area where there's this quote unquote news reporter, where they're talking about pride proms that are popping up in the Bay Area. And the headline is, oh, second annual pride prom comes to Contra Costa County. Here's how you can help. That's the headline. Right. So they're not even pretending that they're just going to shoot the news straight down the middle. They're like, this is our point of view. There's no other one. And you need to help these weird little LGBT teenagers. It's all absolutely through the roof.
Well, that's the best part about all of these things that they push. It's always the way to help is give us money.
Yeah.
That's what it is. I saw a commercial yesterday for a climate action fund. They say, give us money and we'll fight climate. Like, they won't say how they'll do anything. We'll fight for the environment. We'll fight for climate change. Just give us $10 a month. That's all. Yeah. So this is a guy in Georgia who was told to turn down his music. They're outside at a restaurant. The restaurant has music, but a black guy is sitting there, and this guy in the background there told him to turn down the music on his phone. You'll notice that this guy's nails are painted, and the way he's tearing apart his food is rather strange. I just want to point that out so you notice these things. But let's take a listen.
I can't believe Bob tried me like that.
What was it that you was asking me before you interrupted me with my dinner? Because I turned it all the way down for you. Okay, but what was it that you was asking me? Is there a reason why you would ask me to turn my phone down when there's a band playing music that I don't give a fuck about hearing?
Okay, I'd like to pause there and point out the obvious flaw in this argument, which is when you go into a restaurant, no matter what it is, you agree to hear the music that's being played, whether it's on the radio or a live band. You can leave if you want. That's the engagement. That's the contract you're making with the restaurant. You're going in there and you're agreeing to hear the sounds that are in the restaurant coming from the restaurant. If somebody is being a nuisance, then this is no longer a part of the contract. The person has agreed to listen to the live band in there, not to what you're doing. Just like when you go into a movie theater, you agree to listen to the movie soundtrack, not, what somebody's saying behind you. You can't just say, well, why do I need to be quiet for you? I'm in here as well. So I think that's the obvious, lack of logic here, Eric. And we'll watch the rest of it and see what you think.
Do you think it's appropriate for you to ask me, a 33-year-old, a black man, to turn his motherfucking phone down?
Because he's black. Right?
You should know. You shouldn't say a motherfucking thing to me. That's a fact. My hand shouldn't be shaking while I'm eating my motherfucking chicken.
It's because he's scared.
Now, what you better do is talk to do over there and leave me the fuck alone.
You better cock-a-doodly-doodly-doo, man. And that's a reference.
We'll ask another black man to turn his motherfucking phone down no time soon again.
So I'd like to point out the painted nails are a red flag already, Eric, as is the just mangled mess that is displayed. I think is there something wrong with this guy? But the obvious question here is telling a white man telling a black guy to turn down his phone at this restaurant racist? That's the question at hand here.
Well, obviously no, right? And look, are we gonna? This is gonna sound terrible, okay? But what are the odds? What are the odds that a 30? What did he say? He was 33. That a 33-year-old white man sits down there and starts playing music from that. That's annoying. You can ask any New Yorker, by the way, when these kids, these little teenagers and 20-somethings come on the train and they're blasting their music from a phone or from a Bluetooth speaker, it's completely annoying. So when this guy's trying to sit down and have his dinner and possibly enjoy the band that's actually playing there, no, it's not racist. And to your point, yes, the nails are a dead giveaway. And I think we can safely assume that this guy is going on 2 victim cards, right? Okay, so he's black and he's clearly, of the LGBTQ, no pun intended, that is at a barbecue restaurant. And it's also funny. It's also funny that look, he needs the attention. He wants to go viral. He wants to create this. He wants to manifest the hatred like we saw back in the Summer of Love when the BLM protesters were marching down the streets of New York, drinking beers off the tables of old couples. Okay. So when you're rude like that and they say, wow, I don't really like these people, they've just manifested what they were trying to get was somebody who doesn't like you. So now after you've been completely rude to this guy, you're swearing, you're doing this weird stuff with your food. And I mean, bro, you could take the food to go and listen to your music at home. How about that? You ever think about that? No, he didn't think about that. But
the thing where it's just like, everybody should listen to my music. It's not a race thing at all. It's a kid thing. And he's acting like a kid when he thinks that what I'm playing on my phone, I'm allowed to do it because I don't like, you're in a public place. You're allowed to do it. The restaurant could kick you out, I guess, but the idea that everybody else should have to listen to what you deem to be good to listen to is like a child's mentality, I believe.
And I think we are hearing more. We just saw that story about E40, right? Legendary Bay Area rapper who was kicked out of a basketball game. And we know that the NBA is a bare minimum in 2023, 70% black. So somehow E40 thinks he's got kicked out of a game because he's black. And I think full tinfoil hat stuff here that we're going to start hearing more of this because the division tool of the mask and the division tool of the forced pharmaceuticals is no longer relevant, right? So when we were fighting over masks and paperwork, trying to get into Applebee's and museums and stuff, that was more of a division tool. Cuomo, the great, Andrew Cuomo said, "Oh, the mask is about respect. If you don't wear a mask, then you don't respect people." That division tool is gone. So we're going to be right back at the racism stuff. And some people are going to still buy it. Most people are not. But either way, the media is going to make you believe that it's far worse than it actually is. And look, we all know, we're all adults here, and we all know that there are mean, nasty people, right, that are racist. There's people who, might not be racist at all, but made one joke at a particular point in time. There might be, I mean, who knows? There's all types of people. But now they're gonna lay this on really thick because the Rona division is gone, and the climate change stuff doesn't really work. It doesn't really set any fires. It doesn't really get personal. It doesn't make people really angry. Right. So they haven't got to that point yet. So I think we're gonna start hearing more of this. And look, as much as I like E40 and I respect E40, I still think that he jumped out the window with that. Bro, you're like a 50-year-old man, right? You're a millionaire, and you want to pretend that an NBA stadium kicked you out solely because you were black? You could have came out and said maybe it was a little bit of a misunderstanding. I don't know exactly what happened. But do you think, after 30 years of making records, everybody in that area, specifically Sacramento, is not that far from San Francisco, from Vallejo, where he's from, right? It's a couple hours, right? Everybody knows who you are. And you want us to believe that you you were targeted because of your race. And this guy who's clearly acting up like a little child, like an 18-year-old on the subway with the Bluetooth speaker blasting some trash one-hit wonder song, but they manifest the hatred. And so as soon as somebody and shout out to the OG in the back, he kind of seemed like he was taking his stride. He just had his his mean mug on, like, what are you talking about, bro? He didn't really even seem to give it back to him. So curious how that incident actually ended, but I think we're going to see more of this because all the other division tools have kind of gone by the wayside at this particular point in time.
Well, it's pretty funny because he clearly wanted to reenact the scenario for social clout. Once you take out your phone after the fact, because you want people to see it.
Like, what did you say to me? What did you say to me? Say it again. Yeah, it's corny.
On the NBA, Phil Jackson mocked NBA activism and said it got too political for him to watch. This is according to StreamRare.com, which I just discovered is an Anomaly-backed website. As you can see, it's written by Anomaly, so shout out to him. Very nice guy. I talked to him today about this website.
Stream Rare, I get it.
Yeah, because he's Dream Rare. He's got his website Dream Rare, and people are doing this across the board now. Eric, you're seeing, and not that Anomaly ever really worked for anybody. I know he helped somebody else. I don't know if it's a secret, but he was a cameraman for somebody very big for a short period of time. And of course, he's been a rapper the whole time. And his Facebook page has always been huge. But you can see now people are starting more and more things because people don't want to listen to the restrictions. I'm lucky to work for a company that literally says you can say whatever you want. I'm very lucky. There are other companies out there where
whatever you want, but
there are other companies out there, let's just say, that heavily restrict. And it's interesting what happened with Matt Walsh getting, and we'll spend 30 seconds on this, Matt Walsh getting demonetized on YouTube, which was the exact same thing that Crowder was arguing with them about. I found that to be very ironic how Crowder was like, it's not fair that you say if I get demonetized from YouTube, I'm going to lose money. And then they go and get demonetized by YouTube and they're just like, oh, I'm not going to kowtow to what YouTube wants me to say. Just thought that was very funny. So let's see the banner. We're going to have to talk to him about that, the overlapping banners. The Zen Master Phil Jackson recently spoke on music mogul Rick Rubin's podcast and had some interesting things to say about the NBA. He laughed about how the NBA showcased players wearing slogans like, what does it say? Something justice. It's blocked.
Yeah, I didn't know if that was just on my end or that left end.
I think it's because I'm zoomed in here, but
okay, there we
showcase
go.
Player wearing slogans like justice on their shirts and said he doesn't even watch much basketball anymore. I made a little funny thing like justice went to the basket and equal opportunity just knocked him down. That's pretty funny. He also said Phil Jackson says he doesn't like basketball's evolution and doesn't watch it anymore. Thought the bubble and cool slogans on jerseys was wanky and made fun of it with his children. And we can watch this interview, I think. But shout out Anomaly's new site. People are doing that. Some I approve of, some I don't.
Some of the guys I coached, they're talented, Phil. They're really talented players. I know, but I'm not enjoying the games. It's like, that's too bad. There's a new generation that'll like it. They'll like the game. So.
Do you still watch a lot of basketball or
no? I don't.
Tell me about that. When and did you stop immediately from the time you stopped coaching?
No, I didn't. I watched.
You can hear him being like, I don't know if I should say this,
and decided. And they went into the lockout year and they did something that was kind of wanky. They did a bubble down in Orlando, and all the teams that could qualify went down there and stayed down there.
No audience.
And they had things on their back like, justice. And I made a little funny thing like, Justice just went to the basket and equal opportunity just knocked him down. And somebody had another name for a guy who has jersey in the back of a jersey, had some other slogan. So my grandkids thought that was pretty funny to play up those names. So I couldn't watch that. And the Lakers won, actually. They won that year. And
do you feel like it just made little of the game, like it made it like a sideshow? What do you think it was that turned you off?
Well, it was. They even had slogans on the floor.
Yeah.
On the baseline. It was catering. It was trying to cater to an audience or trying to bring a certain audience into play. And they didn't know it was turning other people off, you know?
They did
People
know.
want to
They knew
see
that.
sports as non-political. You know, we've had a lot of different type of
All right, this has gone on long
players
enough.
that
We'll
have
just-
gone on.
dude, can I just say they knew exactly what was happening there. You want to tell me, and shout out Phil Jackson. I like Phil Jackson. I have no problem with him. But do you mean to tell me that the entirety of the NBA organization, nobody, they all thought they didn't know they were going to turn people off with that? They knew exactly what they were doing. It didn't get dozens of people had to okay that. It didn't just say, "Oh well, we didn't realize it was going to be divisive." No, they absolutely knew, and it's the same thing we see with Bud Light and Nike and all these people who are hanging out with Dylan Mulvaney. They know what's happening, and they realize that it is more beneficial for them to capitulate to the agenda because that is far stronger than losing a couple bucks. They would much rather sacrifice a couple dollars to make sure that the establishment, whoever it is behind the curtain, knows that they're still in line. So most of what he said is true. But if anybody thinks for one split second they didn't know that they were dividing people or they didn't know they were turning people off, is a lie. They knew exactly what was happening.
Well, of course they did. They just thought this was the financially um, correct thing to do, or else the players were going to get too mad, or else the rest of the media was going to, shit all over them. And it wasn't. A better person in charge could have told you this, but this is what happens when you listen to like a 23-year-old marketing team, or you listen to, these guys. Like, there's some very smart players, but there's some of the loudest people are always the dumbest, and the people who are probably, the dumbest were probably the loudest. It's happened in the NFL. And there was a group of NFL players that got $100 million to put towards organizations they wanted to put towards. It didn't solve anything. It didn't solve racism or anything. And the NFL ended up, going with things at the back of the end zone and things on the back of the helmets, less intrusive than what the NBA did, which turned a lot of people off. What you've got in the NBA is simple demographics here. You've got, what is it? 13% of black people in the United States. Let's assume that most of the people watching are men, because it is. So you've got 6 or 7% of the United States population. Obviously, not everybody, and not everybody in the country is watching, but proportionately 7% of people who are watching that are black, and then the rest of the people are of other races who are not black, probably. So let's even say it's 50-50, Eric. You're demonizing half of your audience and saying that they're racist, they don't understand. And what's crazy about how they did it in all these different leagues, you look at soccer overseas, and they are kneeling to this day about something that doesn't have anything to do with them in a different continent. So it just goes to show you there's different levels of the marketing strategies, because this is what it all is, going into these sports leagues, and they just chose one of the worst strategies. Now, did they do as bad as the NHL? I don't think they did. I think there's a certain amount of leeway people give to the NBA because it is majority black players. But in the NHL, it's a vast majority white players, and therefore they let this guilt get to them where they think they have to do something, Eric. They have to do something. It can't just be sports. It has to be something else. It has to be, we're terrible and we have to do something. I don't think you'd be sitting at, like, what's another form of entertainment? Would you be sitting in a poker league or a billiards league or darts where they throw it on TV? You see in the middle of the day, 140. Does the dartboard have to say BLM on it, Eric? Does the poker table have to say BLM on it? No, it can just be a sport. The sports themselves aren't hurting anybody. We've had, when the racial incidents come up, it's when the Donald Sterlings come up, Eric, and he says Magic Johnson. It can't be. I was telling people about that. For those who don't know, was it the Utah Jazz owner?
No, he was. It was the Clippers. He was the
Clippers owner. Excuse me. Shout out Utah Jazz, George Karl, and John Stockton and Karl Malone. When this guy, the owner of the Clippers, yeah, I know. Shout out to them though. Jeff Hornacek, Greg Ostertag. When the owner of the LA Clippers was found on hidden audio recording by his mistress to say that she can't be bringing black people to the games because it's a bad look for him. And she says one of them was Magic Johnson, and he still doesn't want it. You know you're racist when you don't want even Magic Johnson to show up to your games. But my
No,
point
I
is,
disagree. No, dude,
you
Magic
don't.
Johnson.
You disagree.
No, because Magic Johnson is a weird Hollywood floozy, and nobody wants to explain how he got AIDS.
That has nothing to do with the color of his skin.
Yeah, exactly. But that's the reason why I don't want Magic Johnson in my house. It's not because he's black. It's because he's a weird Hollywood
But
creeper.
Donald Sterling didn't want him there because he was black. And
Okay.
Can you not have? I don't know. Can Michael Jackson not come to your games either? And then he's not black. Anyways, they're gonna call Phil Jackson racist for this, just like LeBron James called him racist for saying he had a posse. Phil Jackson, who
Scottie Pippen also called him racist.
That's retarded. Phil Jackson, who coached Scottie, coached Michael Jordan, coached Dennis Rodman, and loved Dennis Rodman, the most difficult person to deal with of all time. And I said this in a video way back in the day when LeBron James called him racist. I said George Karl came to mind. Phil Jackson could have coached anybody after winning. He could have chosen the Utah Jazz, who were super white at the time, and then they got Karl Malone. But there's what is it, George Russell, whatever, the Brian Russell, small forward. He could have chosen a super white team. He didn't. And then they're just like, oh, he's racist, even though, Michael Jordan and Dennis Rodman and Scottie Pippen. So I think that's what will happen from this. Okay. People take this clip. Of course he's racist. That's why he doesn't care about it.
Well, no. Obviously, this is and look, I didn't, look like the thing was nearly 3 hours long, so I'm probably not going to listen to it. But it sounds like he was fairly, he was fairly based, as the kids say. And he's just an old guy, bro. He made it. He won the game. He was good as a player. He was great as a coach. Coached some of the best basketball players in the entire world of all time. I don't think the man, by any stretch of the imagination, is a racist. Scottie Pippen is a weirdo whose wife was stepping out on him, so he's just lashing out at everybody so he can get some headlines and sell some whiskey or whatever, some snacks that he was selling. And as far as Magic Johnson is concerned, we never got a real explanation as to how Magic Johnson came down with that illness. Okay, so that's a mystery.
South Park says it was just the money,
Okay, and
maybe Fauci had something to do with it.
But the NBA that Phil Jackson is talking about, it just reeks. It reeks of this soft bigotry of low expectations. Right? They have these millionaire athletes, billion-dollar corporation, but they're pandering to people who they think are too stupid to see through all of the absolute nonsense. So you guys are constantly pretending or letting people know that black people are stupid. They think you're so dumb that painting Black Lives Matter on the floor and kneeling with a towel under your knee is somehow going to solve this problem of racism. And the bubble thing and the George Floyd stuff, like, let's never ever forget, okay, that George Floyd happened in late May or early June of 2020 at what was supposed to be the scariest time. Everything was unknown. There was no pharmaceutical that was going to save you from this deadly disease. Right? The NBA shut down, all of the major sports, everything was shut down. You couldn't go to work. You couldn't do anything until George Floyd died, and they threw it all out the window. That's how manipulative this entire thing has become. When I was arrested in Lower Manhattan, nobody knew the name George Floyd. It didn't exist. 3 weeks later, this man is worldwide famous. And everything that they told you for the past, it was only 3 or 4 months at that particular, 2 or 3 months at that particular time. Everything they told you about how scary it was, and don't ride the train, don't go to work, don't do anything. And still at this point, there's no pharmaceutical that they're forcing on you. And it just vanished. It vanished, and we were protesting. We were burning cities down because of George Floyd. So I think for Phil to put it nicely, saying that it got a little bit too political, you have to look at it logically, bro. Everything they said was just a complete lie. And that was only 3 or 4 months in. And look how far we've come. So it's all absolutely ridiculous. And I will never let it go. They ruined my life, basically.
Shout out George Floyd and the George Floyd Foundation. As his kid said, he's changing the world.
The patron saint of fentanyl. As it were.
Yeah, and his adult acting and his threatening pregnant women. UOPod.com. Thank you for listening on all audio streaming services. Spotify, Apple, you're out there. Google, you're out there. iHeartRadio, we hear you and we see you. YouTube, Getter, and Twitter and Twitch, we see you guys all at once. Patreon.com/UOPod. Let's close out with some more of this Vice documentary. We'll see you guys next time. Back then.
Or a combination of both.
So mega rapper is a label that got pit on the lane, but everyone said it was like a Christian conservative rapper, which you can call MAGA.
How do you feel about having the MAGA rap label associated with you? Do you like it?
Of course, I am MAGA, so I don't mind it. You know what I'm saying? Because I am MAGA. Like, you can't get more MAGA than me.
Define MAGA for me.
Well, a lot of people think it's solely about Trump.
Right.
And I want to separate myself from that type of stuff.
Do you think that there's actually enough people in the MAGA world to sustain your music and popularity? Like, let's say you were never deplatformed. You had every opportunity to reach every ear that's out there. Like, how big could you
I would probably be the biggest artist, one of the biggest artists out.
You think you'd be one of the biggest artists if you could reach everybody?
I had 400,000 followers on TikTok. I was gaining 10,000 followers a day on TikTok. I had 250,000 followers on Instagram before I got banned. We would probably be, might not be Drake level. We would be at a level where we couldn't be ignored at all. You know what I'm saying? That's why they got.
Turn it up, Jordan.